Welcome to STS Podcast. Today we're going to start off with talking about the purpose of the channel. This is going to be where we talk about all that we don't get to record while we go out and try to evangelize out there. The first thing we're going to be talking about is how the interviews will look in the future, since we can't just keep redoing the same ones, and what the format's going to be and how we're going to change it up and make it more meaningful. Anything to say about that, Danny?
So we have lots of ideas, not only for interviews, not only like asking people questions. We want to do more like documentary styles, vlogs where we do actual missionary work. I just posted a video. We just posted a video. We interviewed someone on their testimony. You could see it. We'll leave a link in the description below. An NFL player leaves everything for Christianity. And we want to bring more videos encouraging, not only, like I said, interviews. So that's one of our steps. Daniel, do you want to say anything else?
One thing that I definitely want to do is try filming like our mission trips.
Okay.
Just like filming the entire thing, like it'd be like maybe like a special type of video every year.
Yeah, like a live stream or something, or just really inviting people, because the more people there is, the more powerful it is. In fact, I got a story about that. Of old pastor that we had, not at this church, at a church that we were at before this. It was over in Pasadena, right by Altadena. We were chilling there, and we had a pastor. This is a story that my parents have told me. It was before I was born, but he was always accused of things. The whole church was Filipino, but he never started to hate on us just because of the race, just because a lot of them believed the rumors about him. One of the biggest rumors was that he had stolen $40 from the church fund that was supposed to be for a crusade to the Philippines. And that $40,000 was actually stolen by the treasury itself. And they gave it to a different pastor, thinking that would work. I don't know. It doesn't make much sense, but I guess that's just how your brain works if you like that. But then he didn't even get mad about all of the accusations. In fact, he just moved on and continued to pray. And then, despite having lost $40,000, there was an anonymous donation of $100,000 to the church. Yeah, and that was used on the crusade. It's crazy, but on that crusade, they went there for a little bit, and in one day they were able to baptize 5,000 people in the Philippines.
Wow.
Nice.
So, and we're supposed to go to the Philippines in February.
So if we do, and God provides for that missionary trip, we'll be taking all our equipment, our knowledge, and over there and film as much as we can.
Now I won't be able to be there, but hopefully, if like it's not during February, maybe like January, like during winter break. So my sister can go. She's been praying for it to happen for quite a while.
And for me too, because I have school too. And in the end, it's more important than school, but it's best if we're able to fit it around the schedule.
Yeah.
So we need your prayer on that one. And your own ideas, because you guys are the ones watching the videos. Any better ideas for how we can reach people, some more meaningful content, things that you haven't seen, things that are specific to us that we can do. We can brainstorm together in the comments or however you want to reach us.
All right. So our category number 3 the subcategory in this category is what's the goal of these videos. These videos we want to bring our audience, which are mainly picking on the teenager and the more adults. We want to bring them to Christ, give them a little bit more of an insight of how young people like us can bring impact in the world and to the local people around us.
How do you feel about that one, Daniel? How do you feel about the target?
Personally, if it was me, I'm just gonna make it targeted towards anyone who just wants to learn about God. Really,
Yeah.
It's not gonna be specifically for like teenagers. It's just gonna be for everyone.
We want to get to those that are struggling more in the teenage life, adulthood, even like kids that are looking for something more than just being on YouTube. Looking at all the trending stuff.
And just to be with the people, because Jesus didn't come to earth and stay in the synagogues like a lot of churches will make it seem like all he did was just wait in the church. But really, when he was here, he was doing a lot. And while he did go to church, most of the time he had was spent on the road, on traveling, evangelizing to people.
Yeah. So now that we dealt with a little bit more of the YouTube channel insights or the updates, we want to talk about current events that have been happening, not only in the United States, even in third world countries. But Sean, can you tell us a little bit more of the categories or the stuff that have been happening in the last maybe months or few days?
In the last months, we've had these earthquakes here in Cali, and then over in the Philippines, we have some things happening with police brutality. And then, I mean, here in America, the problems around the world are more similar than you'd think, despite being third world and first world countries. The difference is not that big.
Yeah, we've had also Hurricane Dorian, right?
Yeah, over in the
That's
East Coast.
East Coast, lots of damage. That's been happening in the United States. So what we're trying to do is what God is trying to do is trying for us to heed to his calling. Today we learned in the sermon that we have to heed to the calling, and sometimes that calling is for us, not only us, but for those around us. Do you want to say anything about that?
Mainly, you can't self-condemn yourself. If you know what I mean. Like, you can't feel bad about it and then just go to the Lord. You have to truly feel sorry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's why then you have to go pray.
That's where the calling comes in, right? Because we can die any minute. You know, that hurricane, people died and stuff like that. They could have got injured. That's a calling. You're right. You know, not to condemn yourself. Go to God and repent.
I know for a fact that all these natural disasters have been happening a lot more frequently.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And higher power, too.
2018, 2019.
Yeah.
Like all the wildfires, happened last year. This year.
We've always been having wildfires, but especially the earthquake that happened. I used to live in Ridgecrest, and over there, it's a lot happening, but at the same time, it brings the community together because you got people, stores having the bottles get knocked down, but then at the same time, the community comes together to bring it back. Yeah. So now on that note, let's do what other podcasts do a lot of times. They talk about a subject that isn't so agreeable on because everybody has mixed opinions on it. And the one that I was going to bring up was just that. Where do you think the trial becomes too much? Where do you think the line is drawn where it's more hurt than help when it comes to bringing all of us together as a community? Because a lot of struggles have brought us together. During the struggle that we tend to, because especially here in America, we've been united by struggle. When 9/11 happened, that became an issue that we were able to stop fighting so much over these little things, and there was a big issue at hand. But what we want to talk about is what point do you feel like it's not constructive, the struggle isn't building us, and it gets to the point where it's just too much? Do you think it can ever be too much? Or do you think it's always too much and it's just best that we don't struggle? Well, what's your thoughts on that? What do you think about the purpose of struggle in life?
So I think the purpose of struggle in life is for us to see that we need a savior. We need someone, we need a solace. That's just a little bit.
I agree with Danny. I just feel like the whole purpose of struggling in life is just to bring you closer to God, just in general.
I believe in that too, but at the same time, I also like to recognize how the struggle helps bring us together, because in the end, we've always been fighting, always these tiny quarrels, but whenever it comes time to, because even though we struggle a lot, when something's really happening, we're all able to come together. I mean, with these Amazon fires that's been happening right now.
Brazil,
the Brazilian fires. It's crazy because it's just the start of the season with fires, but all of a sudden, Instagram, people always paint it as just social media is just people trying to flex, but I've seen posts recently that are like, for every single repost, it's an extra $1 donated, and people talking about it, people are actually starting to take littering seriously and everything that's happening, and I feel like while it does bring us closer to God, at the same time it brings us closer together because we lose focus of our togetherness and we start being too divided, and then because we already have race on race crime within ourselves, then we have class on class, then in the end we have human on human when we really should be together in our own communities. So as much as it brings us closer to God, I think it also is meant to bring us closer together.
For sure.
You think there's anything more to it than that?
Well, when you think about it, if you serve your, brother or sister, it's also serving God. It's kind of like the same two sides of the same coin. So,
Yeah,
coming
talk about
closer to God, you can come closer to your brothers and sisters as well. It just goes together.
Mm. And speaking of your own siblings, we all have to have our own experiences and our own growth and trials because we can't study the Bible for other people. Okay, so we just took a short intermission because people knocking on the doors and the windows, specifically children. We're filming at the church. One such child with the name of the kid that faced Goliath. And now we are moving on to a different topic. That was a little bit of lightheartedness because we're going into a very heavy topic that people don't really like to touch on, but we need to talk about these topics, and especially with the relevance of it. And this one is how Christians feel about the LGBT movement and all of the community and the assumed prejudice against them that we are known to have because of books like Leviticus. But from what I've learned from people that I know that are in the LGBT community, they tell me about how really what hurt them the most was people telling them, "Oh, don't worry, I accept you. I don't have a problem with you." Like, my first point, we all have our own points, but for me, the first point that I have is don't talk about LGBTs with LGBTs, especially if they don't ask you. Because I mean, if you're helping a friend that's going through a hard time, you don't try to, unless they're trying to talk about it with you, you don't bring up the hard time if you're a real friend. So then what is the point of talking about it with them? It just makes you seem so fake because you're telling them things like, "Oh, I don't hate LGBTs. I might not believe it's right, but I don't hate you." But from what I've heard from them, that is what hurt them the most.
And honestly, I don't go to public school. Haven't gone in 5 years, but I know you, Sean.
Yeah,
Do you have friends that are LGBT, or you have Christian?
I do actually, and I didn't really have any of them that were like really friends, more like acquaintances. But recently, I got back in touch with one on Instagram, and I won't drop names, of course, but it really opened my mind to how it's not just the fact that a lot of us are known to hate on them, because in the end, there's always going to be rumors, there's always going to be stereotypes about Christians, but I don't think that it's ever right to even talk about it with them, especially when we don't know what it's like. We talk about it like it's a mindset that needs to change. It's because it's really not. It's not. You can't just wake up in the morning and think that you can stop being who to them. That's how you are. And saying things like to them, separating them. We're all people and we're all sinners. And I just don't think that we should really talk about it with them. And in my opinion, even after them being in the church for a while and building relationships with them, I still feel like we shouldn't talk about it. What do you guys think?
I think, of course, let's say maybe if they ask,
What do you think about it?
like maybe if is it wrong or stuff
Yeah.
like that, questions like that, I'd break it down to them and show them points of how it's wrong. But I'm not gonna treat them like there's something
like
different.
someone else. Yeah. So I would break it down to them like what I believe as a Christian. The first parent, our first parents, and then I was gonna ask Sean, are LGBT people? I know I met them too, but I'm not like super close. I'm not super close to them. Are they mean people? No, right?
Nah.
They're one of the friendliest people you can meet. So when we try to talk to them about maybe what they're going through and stuff, you gotta maintain that in them. You can't upset them, do all that to them. You gotta be the Christian, showing them the message you have, but in the right way.
But that's only applies if they want to change.
Yeah.
You can't force it down their throats, nothing like that.
Speaking of that, here's why I don't feel like we should, if they ask what you think about it, even then I feel like you should keep it to a low, because until the point where they feel in themselves that it's wrong, which I'm going to look at this from a perspective of someone that doesn't believe in the Old Testament. Let's think about it like that. Let's say that being that way is wrong. Let's say that you shouldn't do that. in the end, is that not just an outer part of your body? We're not supposed to change from the outside in. If you don't believe that you should eat pork, that's not the first point that you bring up to people. If you feel like you shouldn't, watch a certain kind of movie, that's not the first thing you bring up to people. A certain kind of language, a certain kind of dress. In the end, I feel like, or even just jewelry, because in the end, you need to remember that we change from the inside out. That doesn't mean that saying that you love Jesus and asking for forgiveness gets you saved, but if they get changed from the inside, they'll get changed all the way out. So if they really are going to be converted, then they will give it up anyway, right?
Yeah.
And let's say that it's not wrong. And, well, you don't really lose either way as long as you just treat them like a normal person. You don't talk to them like you're approaching a different species. It's the same. They're the same as you. They're just trying to get through this all. And you don't know what they've been through.
Yeah.
That's why I say just gotta show them love. Love them as everyone else. Don't treat them like there's something different. Just treat them like normal. Because, I have a couple friends.
So I'm sure here we understand pro-life, pro-choice, right? Are we going to get into it in this podcast?
No.
No, right.
But on this subject, I think that it's just, we need to be careful about how we speak about it, because anybody going through a struggle, you won't talk about that struggle as your conversation opener, and you're going to try to stay away from that struggle as much as you can. This doesn't mean that if they specifically ask you to tell them your thoughts, and even in that scenario, remember that for somebody that has probably already heard of the Leviticus verse, that doesn't change anything, because deep inside, that's how they feel. I know people that feel like they were male, born in a female body, and a Bible verse isn't going to change them. The only thing that it'll change is the inside, and if that is really wrong, regardless of what you believe, if you are changed from the inside, you'll be changed out. So I don't feel like it's necessary to bash them over the head with Bible verses when they do ask.
So anything else before we close this podcast about that, or in anything general?
What do you feel like about homophobic people themselves? What would you tell somebody who does make life harder on them, or somebody that doesn't try to, but they're always talking about it with them? What would you say to them?
I don't know, really. Just that obviously they don't like it, but I really don't know what to say.
In that situation, I just feel like a person like that is just a hypocrite, especially if you're considering yourself a Christian and that's what you're saying. I don't know what to tell you, because that's just wrong. That's something that because unlike dealing with them, when you shouldn't call them. I'm just saying that for this specific scenario. But in the end, you're not supposed to make them feel worse about themselves. But that's exactly what you're doing. You just stop. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to anybody, because they don't deserve that treatment. No human deserves that treatment. Jesus would have never done that. And and some people, I've heard some people use the logic, oh, Jesus never hung out with them. Well, I mean, Jesus was around prostitutes, gamblers, all these kinds of people.
Pretty sure.
And he was even crucified by his own people. But as he died, he asked his Father to forgive them. And Jesus was human when he was on earth, so you can't make no excuses that he has some sort of special advantage that you don't. Yeah, even though he is God and God can't die, he had to take human form so he could die for our sins. And you can't tell me that because you don't remember reading about him hanging out with somebody who was in the LGBT community, that means that you shouldn't do that. You're allowed to do that to him. Those same people like to just talk about how, oh, you do this, talk about him all the time. It's one thing to just be blatant like that, but I think it's worse to just talk behind their back, because you try to make them feel like you do care about them, but then you just don't lie to them. And that's just how I feel about it. And with that, I feel like we about to close the podcast. And next time we're gonna have some other topics and tell us in the comments for moving forward what we should continue to do. And don't forget to like and subscribe so we can continue making content. And that if we can monetize this one day, it'll be much easier to go on more mission trips and do more with this. All right, that's it for STS.
All right, guys. See you.
See ya.